More or less, Your Honor, right now, the active cases that we have filed against, Your Honor, against 294 importers, Your Honor, and 76 brokers.
Importers of
Importers, violators of agricultural products, Your Honor.
like sugar, poultry, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. You are correct,
Rice,
Your Honor.
bigas.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, most prominent is this Andrew Chang, Manuel Tan, and Luz Cruz. These are all smugglers, agricultural smugglers.
We,
Kasama
again,
ito sa 294 na sinasabi mo?
yes, Your Honor, but we will check the records, Your Honor. We will let me check our records, Your Honor, and I will provide you the.
Can you please update this committee with regard to the status of the cases that you filed against these smugglers? These
Yes, Your
alleged smugglers.
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor.
At the soonest possible time.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank
I
you,
will.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Estrada. Before we give the floor to Senator Ontiveros and then Senator J.B. Ejercito, mention was made a while ago by Administrator Serafica of SRA Memorandum Circular 17. Ang tanong ko po dito, yung memorandum na yon was addressed to sugar using industrials, meaning to say beverage companies and food manufacturers. Am I correct, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, can you inform this committee what this document has to do with sugar producers for them to be registered with SRA as an international sugar trader? They are not beverage companies, nor are they engaged in food manufacturing. So why were they included under the import program under SO number 4? Naguguluhan ako dun sa intention nyo kasi kanina you were referring to consumers, pero ngayon lalong gumulo. Although SO4 is no longer applicable, it was nipped in the bud. Again, the intention is rather fuzzy because of all these assignments, removal of import allocation, and now we have the sugar traders. Can you provide us what's on your mind, or if there is something that we cannot perceive here, medyo for future reference, so that this will not happen again?
Your Honor, MC-17 only applies to the industrials. This is the 150,000 metric tons that is allocated for the industrials. Yung isang 150,000 metric tons po, that is open to all sugar producers, federations, and other traders. This will for the consuming public and household consumers and institutional consumers in this case.
There is no way to have the for industrial be converted into for the ordinary household users, and the household users allocation will not be converted into industrials in the reclassification stage.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sigurado ka?
What is intended for the industrials will be used for their ingredient or raw materials for their respective products, Your Honor. And
The power was lodged in you alone, individually, laterally, under that aborted ng tawag ko, SO number 4. I think you've done your answering, Senator. Mali si Senator JV. Senator Hontiveros will now have the floor. Isa na lang before you proceed, ma'am.
Yes, Mr.
I'm
Chair.
referring to my previous notes. I had Attorney Beltran answer some questions a while ago, and it has something to do with the slides presented. Attorney Beltran, you signed a document before you resigned, and then you were given a chance to participate after you resigned. So, paano ba to? Medyo gumulo ito, and then you stated under oath a while ago, I forgot the exact time, that all these were done when you read the first 2 pages, Attorney Beltran. So, correct me if I'm wrong. You are a holdover of SRA, correct?
At
Hold-
first,
then before, yung SR,
Yes, yes.
you were a holdover.
with the permission of the Honorable
Yeah,
Chair.
just you answer me yes or no. Holdover ka, di ba?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, you participated in that referendum after you were called to resume duties as a board member.
Yes, sir.
So, you parang sa sundalo, sa AFP, you were called to active duty again. So, the referendum, correct me if I'm wrong, I have a timeline here. The referendum on Sugar Order 4 was emailed to you at 4:59 p.m. on August 8
August 8, sir.
by the board secretary. At 5:43, on the same date, August 8, you emailed your affirmative vote.
Yes, sir.
So all of this happened in less than an hour. Sir,
Yes, sir.
you were able to decide on a very complex and novel issue. In hindsight, we're talking about the removal of the performance band, the allocation to a single individual of that power to reclassify, the assign or assignee controversy. All of this within a period of less than 1 hour, you decided in the affirmative. What happened? Were you under pressure? Ba't napabilis?
With the permission of the Honorable Chair.
Go ahead.
When I received this email, Mr. Chair, at around 4:59 p.m., it was addressed to His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., the Administrator, Serapica, and the rest of the members of the board. With this presentation, it was made to appear, Mr. Chair, that the President will be signing also the sugar order, Mr. Chair. And also, in the last paragraph of this email, if you will note, because I was very particular of this, I was the one who brought this up in the previous proceedings.
I may cut you. You can proceed with your lunch. This is a working hearing, working lunch. So please proceed with your lunch. Go ahead, sir.
Sir, in this last paragraph of this email, this is part of the explanatory note. I read from here that the authority to convert the imported sugar from C to B rests with the sugar board. So I was okay with that. Then, if I move forward, I've gone through the data provided to me before, because I was already given this data before, because I was called to Malacanang also on August 4, but I was not able to join their meeting. I was only in the holding area. So I was already informed of this data that was provided to me. And thereafter, Mr. Chair, the following day, Mr. Antes again said, requesting to use my signature because it will be forwarded to the President for his signature as well. So all of this presentation or misrepresentation, if I should say so, a reasonable mind would believe that indeed the President will be signing the sugar order, Mr. Chair.
Because of that perception, you speculated that a signature is forthcoming. That's why you signed.
I am not sure if it was an speculation, Mr. Chair, because
Your belief,
I based it on
your
the-
strong belief that that a chief executive signature would be affixed. That's why you signed within less than an hour.
Not only that, Mr. Chair, I also read the email, Mr. Chair.
You just read 2 pages of the
No,
entire SO4
of
draft.
the SO4.
Yes,
But
so
other,
it's still a good faith belief that what you are doing then was right.
yeah, it was the format of a sugar order normally, Mr. Chair, is the first part, which is the allocation, and the last part, which is the
But then
authority to
again,
convert.
but then again, there were several provisions that were there, not present in previous sugar orders, like the removal of the performance ban, the assignor assignee provision, and the others, like the authority to reclassify by a single individual. So there were no red flags in so far as you are concerned. This
No,
is everything is okay.
I missed that portion already, Mr.
You missed
Chair.
that portion.
Yes, Mr.
So you
Chair.
just read the first page, and the second page for you is where you will affix your signature. Am I correct?
The last page. The last page of
The
the
last
sugar
page.
order.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes,
I will now have Senator Antiveros. There is one question here with the permission of Senator Antiveros from Senator
Yes, Mr. Chair.
De La Rosa. Please proceed, sir.
Short interjection lang, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Beltran, you are representing the
The Miller's sector,
Miller sector.
Mr. Chair.
Uh, hindi ako abogado, ha? Pero kung ako ipipirma ng isang document, siguro binabasa ko rin siguro from start to finish bago ko pirmahan. Pero I doubt your explanation na hindi mo nakita yung bandang dulo. Pumirma ka na lang diretso. Ako, hindi ako abogado, pero ikaw abogado ka man. Di ba, maniguro ka bago ka pipirma. Baka mamaya yung pinirmahan mo, death sentence yun on your part. Mamaya, di ba, isang tanong lang. Bago ako pipirma dito, hindi ba ako makukulong nito? Yan ang palagi nasa isip natin eh. Bago tayo pipirma, pirma ako ng pirma ito, baka makukulong ako nito. Baka I am signing my own warrant of arrest. Hindi mo ba naisip yan?
That is why, Mr. Chair, out of abundance of caution, I voted in the affirmative with the condition.
Hindi nga, I am
With
not
the
talking about
collective, Mr.
yung,
Chair.
yung previous deliberations ninyo. Dito lang mismo is sugar order number 4 which your signature appeared here. It appears here, nandito. Kaya nga, ilang pages lang naman ito? 3 or 4 pages lang itong sugar order number 4 na ito. Hindi mo ito nabasa lahat, tapos pumirma ka lang dito. Yan ang ibig mong sabihin, na pumirma ka dito kahit hindi mo nabasa lahat.
Because in the as I previously explained, Mr. Chair, in their explanatory note in that email, it was already stated that the authority to convert C sugar to B sugar rests with the sugar board. If I may be allowed, Mr. Chair, to read this portion, please.
No, we have that. We have that. That's
yes.
a public record.
Yes,
Uh,
Mr. Chair.
That particular, with the permission of Senator Bato.
Yeah,
That particular provision that you are attempting to cite is not peculiar to the attachment affixation of your signature. Otherwise, if you sign there, subject to section blah 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 of this document. Wala namang ganun eh. Kaya kasama lahat yun sa mga previous sections. So I think on record you're saying that now in hindsight, but we're not imputing any allegation of wrongdoing. That there might be an oversight on your part relative to your quote-unquote professional responsibility. But again, your signature is there. Senator De La Rosa.
Mr. Chairman, just to show you the SRA copy, no? Itong sugar order number 4 copy, every page bears your signature. Marginal. Yung marginal signature mo every page. So, you mean to say na pinirmahan mo lang itong kada page na ito without reading the page itself?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may. Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, my signature there is an e-signature, Mr. Chair, not my actual, because That is usually how we do it during the pandemic. So Mr. Antes emailed me requesting permission to affix my e-signature. So I instructed the board staff to vet on the documents, then affix my signature, Mr. Chair, because when I say they vet my documents, they will have to refer to my voting during the deliberation via referendum. That is how it happened, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, kaya you're giving me the impression na grabing maling akala from Yusik Sebastian to Administrator si Rapica hanggang sa'yo. Grabing domino effect nitong maling akala na ito. Kaya ang bigat na maling akala ito. Lahat kayo, nawalop kayo ng isang maling akala. Mga abogado pa naman kayo. Hindi naman abogado yung iba, pero ikaw, specifically, ikaw mismo, abogado kayo. Kaya nawalop kayo ng isang maling akala. Lahat kayo tinamaan ng maling akala. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Salamat, Attorney Beltran.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Senator De La Rosa. Senator Rizon Taveras is recognized.
Salamat, Mr. Chair. May I ask questions of Mr. Pablo Lobregat, President, yes, of the Philippine Sugar Millers Association
Can
Incorporated.
you be seated here? And Mr. Secretary, can you administer the oath? Who else, Senator Ontiveros?
After Mr. Lobregat, huli na lang, Mr. Chair, si Attorney Guillermo Tejida ng SRA.
Attorney Tejida. Mr. Secretary, can you administer the oath? Can you please be seated here in front?
You raise your right hand, please. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this proceeding.
I do.
Thank you.
What
Salamat.
about Attorney Tejida? Has the oath been administered? Thank you. You may proceed, Senator Ontiveros.
Salamat, Mr. Chair. So, una po kay Mr. Lobregat. Sir, meron po bang sugar hoarding ngayon?
I cannot say none.
Mhm.
Maybe there
But-
might be some.
But in the magnitude that is surrounding this sugar fiasco.
Mrs. Senator, in my statement during the congressional hearing, I made a statement that said hoarding and smuggling are symptoms of a supply deficit. They are
Mhm.
not causes.
So speaking of the supply deficit, artificial ba yung sugar shortage?
I do not believe that it is artificial.
So you believe that the sugar shortage is a reality?
I believe so.
All right, sir. There are allegations going around that no consultations had been undertaken with the stakeholders. Kayo po ba, kinonsulta ba kayo ng SRA? If so, ano ba yung mga rekomendasyon ng stakeholders? And kung may rekomendasyon, ano yung basehan ng rekomendasyon ng mga stakeholders?
Madam, I just want to clarify, are you referring to sugar order number 4, the defunct sugar order number 4?
Yes, I'm referring to SO4.
I remember that all stakeholders were consulted before the issuance of that order.
Mhm.
I do not remember exactly what, or we do not know because what the other consulted parties said, but I remember the PSMA did recommend 300,000.
Mhm.
And I think I heard earlier that most stakeholders that were consulted more or less gave the same figure,
Mhm.
but not too far from there.
Mhm. And dito sa recommendation ng PSMA na 300,000 metric tons, nasabi nyo more or less the other stakeholders made the same or similar or a little less recommendation. Ano yung basehan ninyong mga stakeholders para sa rekomendasyong iyon ng 300,000 metric tons or a little less?
Usually, we rely on data that is coming out of the SRA.
Mhm.
There is a production bulletin. We also consult our members, for example, throughout the year, at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, we, for example, ask our planters how is their LKGTC, which is
Mhm.
the number of 50 kilo bags that you can get in a hectare.
All right.
And last year, I remember because of the rains, there had been there was a little improvement from the previous year, but not very much.
Especially after Typhoon Odette.
Especially during Typhoon Odette and after Typhoon Odette, the rainfall, at least in Bukidnon and even Negros, was unabated. I mean, it was very wet. So these are things that go into our recommendation, and we could see, you can actually foresee early on if you're really going to get a good crop or a better crop or a bad crop. And we were hoping that the weather would dry up towards the end, and we did not see any improvement.
Malaking factor din talaga dito sa sugar fiasco na ito, yung panahon, yung weather.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
In my presentation in Congress, I said that was the main culprit.
Okay.
You cannot blame the industry for the weather. We don't create it.
And since yung PSMA ay isa sa mga nagrekomenda ng 300,000 metric tons, ano ngayon ang tingin ng PSMA dun sa reduction ng sugar imports mula sa 300,000 metric tons o yung panukala sa ilalim ng SO4 to 150,000 metric tons o yung kasalukuyang proposal? Would this 150,000 metric tons ibababa ba niya yung retail price ng asukal sa 70 pesos per kilo? And even if so, sa ilang araw or ilang linggo pa or even ilang buwan pa, ibababa sa 70 per kilo? Your mic, sir.
I do not have the official, I cannot give you an official PSMA statement because we have not met on that. This is very recent. In fact, we have to give recommendations on the 150. Personally, I think the whole process has been delayed.
Has been
Delayed,
delayed.
right? Can I expound a little bit?
A little bit, please, because I only
Sure.
have 3+
Okay.
minutes left.
Sugar order number 3 was crafted early on in January after Odette because we saw prices starting to rise, especially refined. One of the causes of the prices going up was the delay caused by the TROs issued in Negros. As that refined that was supposed to come in March only came in practically May. The other thing that happened was the elections caused paralysis in most government agencies until the new administration came online. This is what I said in Congress. And all these delays added up, and now they are still crafting the sugar order number 2, I think, for this year. And this has all caused these prices to remain high.
And yung 150,000 metric tons proposed sa ngayon, ibababa ba niyan yung presyo ng asukal sa 70 pesos per kilo? And in how long would it take, if at all, it would bring it down to that price level?
When it was being proposed during that meeting I attended in Malacañang, what was being pushed was 150, and I said, anything is better than nothing.
Better than nothing. Is it
it-
good enough para makuha yung isang gusto nating makuhang mas murang asukal para sa mga tao at para sa food and beverage manufacturers?
Personally, I don't think so.
Okay. Right. Kanina, sir, binanggit nyo yung you rely on the data coming out of SRA. Actually, Mr. Chair, itatanong ko rin yun mamaya kay Mr. Tejeda. Pero lastly, Attorney Tejeda, kay Mr. Lobregat, who do you think is feeding the president with misleading information?
Not the president.
Mhm.
I mentioned in my statement yesterday on CNN, I said Malacanang is being misled,
Mhm.
right? And this was with reference to the raids that have been going on. After my
Okay.
first statement in Congress, I don't know why certain sectors felt that I was going against their opinions.
Mhm.
And 2 days after, there was an article that came out in Manila Times that said, this was Mr. Lamata talking, said,
Mhm.
they should be raiding also the mills in Bukidnon because the raids in Luzon are just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Mm.
And 1 week later, while we were attending the Philsutec, Bukidnon was raided, right? And they showed these pictures of
We acknowledge the
400
arrival of the Senate President.
446,000 bags
Mm.
of sugar, which seems to many, of course,
Mm.
an enormous amount of sugar. But what I can say is, number one, this is all sugar produced in Bukidnon.
Mhm.
Last year, Bukidnon, in our mills, we produced close to 3 million tons. We produced close to 3 million bags, and 440,000 bags represents only 15% of our production.
Mm.
So if you ask us, were we hoarding? Well, we're down to the last 15%.
Okay.
And we will only start milling in November. So this will only last us about 45 days.
See. So the dire predictions seem to be dovetailing with each other coming from different sources about the supply running out. Actually, Mr. Chair, nabanggit ni Mr. Lobregat yung raids. I will also be asking Attorney Tejeda who is feeding Malacanang or who is misleading Malacanang in regards to the raids. So maraming salamat, Mr. Lobregat.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Could I please ask now my last questions kay Attorney Tejeda?
You still have about 3 minutes and 12 seconds.
Yes, salamat, Mr. Chair.
Senator,
Opo. Attorney Tejeda, sino po yung nag-uutos ng mga BOC raids or inspections sa mga bodega?
Mayang hapon, Your Honors.
Ang hapon po.
Good afternoon. The Sugar Regulatory Administration actually is not privy to the inspections of the Bureau of Customs until after the raid have been conducted.
Well, nabanggit nga rin po ni Acting Commissioner Ruiz kanina na nagko-coordinate sila sa SRA dito sa mga inspection o raid na to. So, sige, kung pagkatapos nilang pumasok or mag-inspect or mag-raid at magko-coordinate sa inyo, di ba nila sinasabi sino nag-utos nung raid or inspection na yon? Your mic, sir.
They do not categorically state who ordered, but from the point of view of SRA is that like that one in Subic, the raid or the inspection, I mean, was conducted maybe sometime the afternoon until evening, and personnel of the Bureau of Customs would actually came to the office on a holiday to seek a verification whether the shipment is cleared by the SRA. What really transpired was that I was shocked myself to hear the news that my signature appeared on that certain clearance from the SRA, which was claimed to have been fake.
So sa inyo pala yung pirma na finake? Hindi
Yeah.
yung isang intriga na lumabas ng maaga sa sugar fiasco na to na finake daw yung pirma ni Presidente. Kayo talagang finake ang pirma nyo sa isang papel.
As far as that news came out, the clearance was of my signature. Precisely that I readily cleared that it was a shipment, well, under sugar order number 3.
So tanungin ko sa inyo, Attorney Tejeda, yung isang, ibahin ko ng konti, yung tanong ko kay Mr. Lobregat, sino sa tingin nyo nag-mislead sa Malacanang tungkol sa mga raids or inspections?
I cannot categorically state, but this could have been prevented if
Yes.
the SRA was alerted ahead of time of these clearances because as I can notice, based on the 25 August 2022 letter of the BOC addressed to the acting administrator now, Mr. Alba, most of those raided or inspected either belong to participants of SO3 or are also registered international and local traders. But these are all, of course, subject to verification because at SRA, we do not conclude that there's no hoarding here, there's no smuggling here, provided that our records would be consulted in this regard.
Subject to verification din, yung mga ni-raid o in-inspect ay covered naman pala ng isang mas maagang sugar order at hindi dapat sanang naging subject ng raid or inspection. I totally agree. A lot of this fiasco could have been prevented by better handling at different levels. Attorney, gusto kong i-establish kung yung shortage, sugar shortage ay tunay o peke sa pamamagitan ng data validation. Yung veracity ng data ng SRA, sabi kanina ni Mr. Lobregat, pinagbabasihan din ng mga stakeholders sa kanilang mga rekomendasyon. Totoo ba? Tunay ba yung mga datos nyo sa SRA? Maaasahan ba yan? Your mic, sir.
Of course, Your Honor, these data are the ones being used by the stakeholders during stakeholders conference, and these data were products of what we call the sugar monitoring system. We come up weekly, or at least approximately weekly, of the supply and demand situation of the country. And these production bulletin are cross-checked with the cadening system of the mills. We have the so-called SMS, the sugar monitoring system, and we also monitor the coastwise movement of sugar through the shipping permits. And there are this sugar from the mills before release are covered by what we call sugar release orders, and these are validated by our regulation officers who are there in the mills daily.
Salamat, attorney. And kahit kami sa Kongreso, we presume regularity. Yung ibang, just a quick segue from Attorney Tejeda, Mr. Chair, yung ibang stakeholders, kanina tinanong ko kay Mr. Lobregat kung kinonsulta sila. Is Mr. Raymond Montinola of CONFED here? Pwede ko rin bang itanong sa kanila if they were consulted? So it looks like he is not here, kung tama po ako. Kung hindi, to my last question.
Comsec, can you
Yes,
answer
Mr.
that?
Chair.
Comsec, can you answer that? Who is still virtually present?
Is Mr. Montinola of CONFED around?
Let's see.
Not around, Mr.
All
Chair.
right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We
Kung
have,
ganun.
Senator Ontiveros,
Yes,
we
Mr.
have
Chair.
other resource persons from the private sector.
Yes,
We
Mr.
have
Chair.
Mr. Jesus, Attorney Barrera from the Philippine Sugar Dealers Association.
Same organization as Mr. Lobregat. Yes,
I
Mr.
think
Chair.
he is present physically. And then we have Mr. Roland de la Cruz, National Congress of Unions in the sugar industry.
Salamat, Mr. Chair. Could we ask Mr. De La Cruz then?
Yes. Mr. de la Cruz, are you physically present or online?
Your Honor, I'm online right now. Your
Ikaw
Honor.
yung
Good
nagda-drive
afternoon
kanina pa, di ba?
Yes, po. I'm on
Nasa
my way to
parking ka na ba?
Union.
You're still mobile.
Sorry, sir?
You're still...
No
Parang
pa.
gumagalaw ka pa.
Not
Saan ka ba?
Okay.
Not anymore,
You
sir.
have
Not
parked.
anymore. I'm in the meeting venue.
Okay.
Salamat, Mr. Chair. So just to my last question kay Mr. De La Cruz then, sir, kayo po ba ay kinonsulta ba kayo? Kayo po ba ay kinukumbinse or nilinlang ba kayo para maniwala na gusto ni Presidente itong importation? Kung kaya't nagkaroon ng rekomendasyon ng 300,000 metric tons of importation?
Your Honor, for the record, we were not involved. We were not part of the consultation process, despite the fact that we represent the workers in the sugar industry,
Right.
as well as I also sit as a member of the Stakeholders Consultative Assembly. But for the purposes of Sugar Order Number 4, we were not a part of the consultation process, Your Honor.
Salamat, Mr. De La Cruz. Napaka-importante nun, Mr. Chair. And I really would reiterate the point raised earlier by Sen. Tulfo na stakeholder ang sugar workers, employees, yung mga union. At dapat sa ganitong ka-importanteng issue ay kinukonsulta sila regularly para din hindi maulit yung ganitong klaseng fiasco, Mr. Chair. In my last few seconds, just for the record, Mr. Chair, would just like to manifest that what is clear to me so far is that many things are not clear. And it also seems that many powerful forces are at play. Bakit po may discrepancy sa issue ng paano nalaman ng Executive Secretary ang SO4?
Yung binigay mo yung galing sa China. Kasi
Maliit na bagay.
Hindi, nasa ano?
I think
Nasa
there's
baba.
one mic,
Sige,
Mr. Chair.
Senator Amy, I think you should unmute.
Salamat, Mr. Chair. Maliit na bagay, no?
You should
Yung
mute.
maliit na bagay, sasabihin nyo yung discrepancy sa issue ng paano nalaman ni ES. Pero it shows lack of candor, which hearings like these expect. What is the ES hiding? What information doesn't he want the public to know? Also, why all these raids or visits on bodegas, tapos malalaman in the end, the import permits are in order and the mission is terminated? Who is feeding the president or Malacanang wrong information? Is the executive secretary feeding the president wrong information? Is the president caught in the crosshairs of opposing camps? Di kaya usapin lang ito ng nag-aaway na mga kampo, Mr. Chair, with some groups wanting to change the leadership of the SRA or limit the number of importers to a select few. Hindi ba trabaho ng ES na protektahan ang Pangulo? Hindi ba dapat gatekeepers sila of these competing interests so the president can make policy decisions unfettered by political considerations? Kaya kailangan po talaga makarating si ES sa ating pagdinig, Mr. Chair. Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Ontiveros. With the permission of Senator De La Rosa and Senator Padilla, the Senate President would want to question first because he has a meeting with the Department of Foreign Affairs. So with your indulgence, we recognize the Senate President who was the prime mover of this investigation. Had it not been for his privileged speech, we will not be having lunch here. So the Senate President is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Maraming salamat, my dear colleagues and our dear participants of today's hearing. I wish I could have one whole day to explain to my colleagues the intricacies of the sugar industry. Yung sinasabi po with due respect to our dear colleague in the minority, Senator Risa Ontiveros, malalim yung usapin nitong sugar industry na ito. In good times, nagkakawatak-watak sila because kanya-kanyang income yung millers, kanya-kanyang income yung planters, yung traders, etc., etc. In bad times, they come together, they call themselves the Sugar Alliance. When taxation is upon them, may sugary tax and sweetener tax and all that, then we unite. No, unfortunately, those are the only times that they unite when there's a problem with the industry. Today, there is a problem with the industry because there are claims of low supply of sugar, which is conflicting by different organizations. The farmers will always err on the side of, I would say, conservative importation. Kasi syempre, pag nag-import kayo ng import, alam naman po natin sa sibuyas, sa kamatis, sa iba't ibang produkto, gulay, pag nag-import tayo ng import, galunggong, babagsak ang presyo ng importation, ay ng presyo ng locally produced natin na produkto. Now, when we talk about federations, Your Honors, talagang may nag-aaway-away dyan. That's a normal federations and planters groups, nag-aaway-away. So let's filter that out. Let's take out the noise. But before Senator Risa leaves, I know she leaves, with due respect to my dear Deputy Minority Leader, I truly believe that the president is doing a great job in terms of looking at the needs of the farmers, ang kapakanan ng ating mga magsasaka. Kaya nga pinigil nga niya yung importation kasi gusto niya malaman ano talaga ang halaga na kailangan i-import at hindi lang palaging import lang ng import. So I want to put that on record. I feel that he's done the best job so far in the last how many years I've been here in the Senate in terms of handling this issue. And he's been calling meetings in Malacanang with different stakeholders to come up with a win-win solution. In fairness to him, to come up with a win-win solution. Now, one of the stakeholders meetings, even Mr. Lobrigat was there and he was present, representing the PSMA. What is clear here is that those stakeholders meetings were not considered coming out with SO number 4. We did not have, and it was clear, we did not have those meetings, and it was clear also that the workers' unions were not informed, the planters, the millers, wala po nun. They're coming up with a number given several months ago, January. The situation January is different from the situation today. So definitely a stakeholders meeting was needed to come up with such a large amount of importation. Second, on the issue of ES Vic Rodriguez, let's let him answer your questions when he comes on the next meeting. Ang akin lang, let us look at possible solutions to this perennial problem of sugar shortage. Last year, my dear colleagues, and you all know that we were hit bad by 2 typhoons, particularly in the sugar area, producing areas. One was, of course, Typhoon Odette, and the other one was Typhoon Agaton, which hit us and basically inundated many sugar areas. So that's why we have a shortage for this year. But normally, maliit lang po yung shortfall. But this last administration of the SRA, Your Honors, has had the penchant of wanting to import and import at the detriment of our small farmers. Kaya, we have to make sure that the importation is legal, that the importation is above board, and that the importation is necessary. Kaya natutuwa po ako na nandito po ang ating Bureau of Customs. The raids, with due respect to Ma'am Risa, I'm in favor of those raids. Why? Because I would like to always err on the side of government when it comes to anti-hoarding, when it comes to anti-smuggling. Because if they show the papers, they have nothing to be afraid. Di ba? You always say that eh. Tayo mga politiko, we're willing to sign bank secrecy laws. Because kung wala naman tayong tinatago, huwag tayong matakot. So, ang gusto po natin mangyari, ito mga importers, traders, yung mga bodegas, pati mga sugar mills, it's not considered a raid. It's an inspection. It's not, you can look at it that way. It's an inspection or a raid. Under the law, SRA has the power to inspect all these bodegas. Under Republic Act 10845, that is the Anti-Agricultural Smuggling Act, the BOC and other government agencies have the power, okay, to visit and inspect traders and importers of agricultural products, and let me quote, rice, sugar, corn, pork, poultry, garlic, onions, carrots, fish, cruciferous vegetables. This is the first time I've heard there was cruciferous vegetables in its raw state or have undergone simple process of preparation and preservation. Nasa batas po yan. Hindi po illegal ang ginagawa po nilang inspection. Kasi para malaman po natin, mga kababayan na nakikinig po na yun, kung yan po ay hino-hoard for price manipulation o kung yan po ay illegally smuggled into the country. Kaya tama po yun. Yung nangyari sa Thailand, kung may papeles po yan, di magpaliwanag po sila. Pagkatapos nun, release po yung produkto. Pero ang importante dito na yun, mga kababayan, my dear colleagues, is that if there are, and I was interviewed, as a matter of fact, I'm maliciously being implicated to the sugar in the Bukidnon raids. I do not plant sugar, and my uncle, Tito Pablo Lobrigat, will confirm, I do not plant sugar. I don't have a single bag of sugar there because I no longer am involved with sugar. And my participation is to protect the small farmers and Bukidnon. And you can confirm this, former Administrator Serafica or Mr. Lobregat. Bukidnon is the second largest producer of sugar in the country next to Negros Occidental. Kaya maingay ako dito kasi pinaglalaban ko ang maliliit namin na magsasaka sa Bukidnon na may 1 hectare, 2 hectares lamang na agrarian reform beneficiaries. Kasi sila po ang kawawa pag nagkaroon po ng price manipulation, hoarding, o smuggling. Kaya, balikan natin yung facts of the case. There is a call to import sugar dahil may kakulangan ng asukal. Pero subsequently, under the inspection, let's call it inspection, no longer raid, if you want to call it in another name, raid or inspection by the BOC and the ESAP. I do not know if we were able to invite the ESAP here, Your Honors. But if the ESAP will show there are several bodegas all over the country with a number of sugar stored in these bodegas. Sugar sacks or bags or yung meron doon tonelada, which is the wholesale delivery of sugar, which they repack into smaller containers. Now, we have to ascertain that there is enough sugar with all these inspections of bodegas to be able to say that we do not need to import at this point in time. So that is my question today, Your Honors. I want to concentrate on that. When I want to ask now the BOC, to Mr. Tejada, or whoever is here to represent the Bureau of Customs together with the raiding parties, yung mga pinakita kong mga litrato last week na napakaraming asukal, together with the ones in Bukidnon. I know Crystal Milling and Bukidnon Sugar Milling Corporation was also inspected. They also have about 60 plus or 70 plus thousand bags in their bodegas. I would like to find out now what is the estimate total number of sugar that was located in this particular raids or inspection by the BOC, ESAP, and other government agencies. Can anyone answer me on this issue, gentlemen and ladies?
Yes, Your Honor. Regarding the Yogi Ruiz for Bureau of Customs, Your Honor. Regarding the raid in Bukidnon, Your Honor, the inspection in Bukidnon, Your Honor.
Hindi, lahat-lahat na. What is your name, sir? You are Mr. I'm sorry, I can't. My eyes are very bad. I cannot.
Yogi Filimon Ruiz, Your Honor.
Okay. Commissioner Yogi. Yeah, could you tell us all overall, no? Overall. Bukidnon is only the tip of the iceberg. But you went to Quezon City, raided bodegas in Pampanga, in Bulacan, Davao, all over. So in your assessment, what is the total estimate? Kasi kung tatanungin mo lahat ng stakeholders na nakausap namin, walang sugar daw. Except for the farmers that are claiming that there's enough sugar.
Yes, Your Honor. The total number of sacks for imported sugar, Your Honor, 479,981.5 sacks. For local sugar, Your Honor,
Saan po yan nahanap, Commissioner?
this is for all the inspections nationwide, Your Honor.
Well, is there a possibility that we can play the pictures once again? Saan ba yung pictures? Is it with the committee secretariat?
Yes,
Yung
yes.
pinalabas natin last week na pictures. Papakita ko po sa inyo to, Commissioner. I do not know if you were participating in all these raids, but
Can you do that, Comsec? Can you
that
do
is more than 400 because the 460 plus, Bukidnon lang yun, I think. Yung
Yes,
isa
Your
yun.
Honor.
Ito, ang dami pong mga na-raid na bodega.
Yes, Your Honor. That's for the imported sugar only, Your Honor. There are also local sugar, 696,028 sacks for a total of 1,176,000 sacks of sugar, Your Honor.
For all the, and you can, how many raids or inspections were done?
31 inspections, Your Honor.
And which areas were these
These
general areas? Take the
general
provinces.
areas, Your Honor, for nationwide coverage, Your Honor.
So 1 million, you're saying 1 million, kasama na yung sa Bukidnon.
Yes, Your Honor.
1 million,
1,176,000 sacks of sugar, Your Honor.
sacks of sugar. This is all refined.
All refined, Your Honor.
How about raw sugar?
We do not have the data for raw sugar, Your Honor.
So will you be able to come back to me and tell us if there was raw sugar? I'm sure there was raw sugar kasi
Yes, Your
ito
Honor.
mga
I will.
bodega is, may we recognize, Mr. Chairman, Congressman, Mr.
Good-
Pablo Labregat.
Good afternoon,
Yes, you
Mr.
may
Senate
proceed, Mr.
President.
Dugat.
If I may answer the question for raw. The 446,000 inventory of crystal sugar is all raw. And if you were to convert that into tons, that is about 22,000 metric tons.
So that was the one that was still in the bodegas of Crystal Milling are
It's
still
in the
raw.
bodegas, but I did mention earlier that that is only 15% left of what we actually produced, right?
May I ask, Mr. Lubregat, why is it still in the bodegas?
We are loading trucks as fast as we can. In the last 10 weeks, we have been loading at a rate of 10,000 bags a day, right? So the 440,000 bags are only going to last for another 45 days.
Of which you'll start milling already.
No, that will be the first week of October. There's going to be another month without milling.
The reason why they mill late in
Yes,
Bukidnon, Your Honor, is that
we want to mill late because of the
rainy season.
No, rainy season. But there's another important fact here, Mr. Senate President, if I may inject here. The PSMA sent all the senators this document, which is the Sugar Production Bulletin of August 7, early in the month, just this month, okay? There should be something coming out sooner. And on page 4, there is a raw sugar balance by mill district. For the entire Philippines, there is only 142,000 tons in the total country. Mindanao has 42,000, Panay has 13, Eastern Visayas 3, Negros has 78,000, and Luzon, which is the biggest consumer, has only 4,879 tons. If you want, I can convert that into LKG, but it's all there for your perusal.
To correct the perception, Your Honor, that is locally produced.
Yes.
This is not,
This is raw. I'm only talking
Yes,
about
raw sugar.
Okay.
yes.
And our average monthly consumption is anywhere between 170 to 200,000 tons, right? In other words, by the end of this month, there will be practically nothing left of raw in the mills, which is what we consider the buffer stock. We need to have 450 tons of sugar, raw and combined, to carry us over for the next 3 months, September, October, November, when milling is only ramping up, right? We need to have the carryover stock. In other words, this year we'll practically have nothing of carryover stock. What sugar is left is in the pipeline. The imported sugar, for example, that is in the bodegas of the industrial users and the traders that have their bodegas with sugar, which is refined, that is sugar or raw. That is what is left in the pipeline. And that's not very much. And this is
That
why
is remnants of the SO number 3.
that's included, and which is not really available. For example, what was raided in Cavite yesterday that I read in the newspapers was 350,000 bags. It sounds a lot, but that's only 17,000 tons, right? And what we're saying is this is the main reason why we when we were consulted, we gave the figure of 300,000 tons because we felt that that was what was needed to bring up the carryover stock so that the prices would not be too high.
But that is the reason why we need to inspect SO number 3's remaining balance of sugar. So we know how much sugar is still in the bodegas that have not been shipped out. I think it is to the miller's advantage that the imported sugar is distributed to the industrial users as soon as possible. Is that correct?
Um,
You're a miller.
Let me
Yes.
correct it. The imported sugar that was brought in is already owned by the industrials. When they want to use it is not our concern, right?
But I'd like to put on record in our previous meeting,
Yes.
when we asked Coca-Cola, wala naman silang natatanggap. That is exactly the reason why we're having this meeting, is also because are we allowing importation given to particular importers that are not going towards their intended user or demand, or the intended demand user. And it happens. I mean, we've noticed that there's a lot of pole vaulting that is happening, and because of the high prices, it's one of the reasons why we're trying to figure out if they're pole vaulting and not selling to the intended user and actually selling to the local market at almost double the price.
Mr. Senate President, when we were consulted about the importation, we only base our recommendations based on things like the production bulletin. We look at the overall picture. It's a very difficult task even for SRA on how to allocate any
Yes, but-
any imported sugar.
But to hasten, because I only have a limited time frame, Tito Pabs, I call him Tito Pabs. So you see me in short pants, Your Honors. I grew up in their farm, Bukidnon. But you agree with me that it is possible. I mean,
What is possible?
that there are importers that import and do not deliver to the intended beneficiary. It is possible.
I
In
don't
the
think
realm
so.
of possibilities.
Well, I think you saw some leaks of imported sugar that ended up in bodegas where they were not supposed to be.
Correct.
But those were just in the hundreds of bags,
No,
right?
these are-
But in general, if you're talking about SO3, whoever imported is gonna keep it for himself. He's not gonna let anybody else get it.
No, because the problem is we give the allocation to the importer. We're trying to find a way also, our system, through this committee, where we can recommend to the SRA a better system, and which I mentioned in Malacanang, and the president also mentioned that he would like that the SRA issue the permit for large-scale industrial users and let the large-scale industrial user find the importer. So that way, silang dalawa na lang nag-usap, wala nang intergovernment, wala nang government intervention. That is also a possibility. Like if Coca-Cola
Of course.
needs 50,000 metric tons, then issue them a permit. How na bahala? You bring in 50,000 tons. And it's already direct importation on their part, so that there's no more tongpots, there's no more talk about traders
agree.
coming to the
I am
SRA.
not against industrial users importing directly.
Yeah, therefore, that is part of the discussion that we're looking at here. Baka mas maganda nga na we come up with reforms in the industry. And
The PSMA would like to participate when there are any consultations.
yes, kasi let's also put it on record. Some PSMA members also are importers. Is that correct?
Yes, even I participated during the replenishment program.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
let me explain. We were only importing what we exported. We exported to the US and we imported only the same amount back in. We don't, I personally do not like to deal with industrial users only because they take long to pay.
Yeah, but
I'd rather get paid in cash. I don't want to wait 90 days, 120 days.
yes, but that's why that was where the predicament is, diba? The millers are also sometimes importers and traders themselves. Eventually, what happens, Your Honor,
There is nothing really wrong.
There's nothing wrong.
Everything is
Correct.
above the table.
unless the intended
Above
user does not receive the sugar, right? Unless instead of being given to Coca-Cola, it's held in a bodega somewhere, 10% of the volume imported. Let's say you bring in 1 million sacks, but 100,000 sacks you pole vault to another bodega and you sell later at a higher price. It happens. I've been too long in this industry to know that that doesn't happen. And that is what we're trying to prevent. If we really want to help the sugar farmers, we must get rid of these leakages and loopholes which are detrimental to the farmer. Now, I'm glad that there are producers here that can answer. What is the farm gate cost of raw sugar before the milling ended? Of course, it's artificially high now because there's no sugar, but let us put it at last May, before we ended the milling season in Bukidnon and in Negros. What was the farm gate price for farmer per kilo? Was it around maybe 45, 40 to 50 pesos per kilo of raw sugar?
I remember sometime in May when we ended, the last price we were paying was something like 2,300 per 50 kilo bag.
So 2,300 divided by 50 pesos. 1,300 divided by 50 pesos. 46
50
pesos.
46 pesos per kilo.
Okay. How much is the tolling fee when you refine it per kilo? I mean, when you go to a refiner, I know you're not a refiner. I know Busco is the refiner in Bukidnon. When you want to refine raw sugar into refined sugar per kilo, what is the cost? 10 pesos? 15 pesos?
I know that you get a yield of about 92% from 50 kilos, so you only have about 8%.
A rough number. Could you give us a rough number per
You
kilo?
would have to pay a tolling fee of about approximately 300 pesos at that time.
Per
I mean,
bag.
Per bag.
Okay, 300 pesos per bag. So 300 divided by 50. That's 6 pesos. So 6 pesos plus 46 pesos raw sugar, that's 52 pesos. So, question is, when it is being sold, and alam po ng SRA ito, it is sold at an average, at that time when there was supposedly no sugar shortage, this is being sold at 80 to 90 pesos per kilo in the supermarkets. Correct? At 80 to 90 pesos per kilo, the trader is the one making a killing at almost 30 to 40 pesos per kilo. That is the problem, Your Honors. Ang problema dyan, napakalaki ng kita nitong mga traders na ito pagdating ng asukal sa merkado. Kaya, ipinaglalaban po natin dito ang ating mga magsasaka and sugar farm workers. Kasi, pag magsira ang farm, wala na rin trabaho yung sugar workers, yung mga tapasero, sakada, lahat. Yung mga mill workers, syempre, apektado din sila if they have no sugar to mill because the fact of the matter is, when it is no longer feasible or profitable to plant sugar, people will shift. That's a phenomenon in Bukidnon. That's why there's more pineapple, more bananas being planted in Bukidnon. The sugar areas are getting smaller and smaller dahil napakaliit po ng kita ng ating mga magsasaka. They'd rather deal with Dole Philippines, Del Monte Philippines, or whichever, para ma-convert nila yung lupa nila from sugar to banana and pineapple. Kaya yan ang problema ng industriya. We have to make it profitable for the farmers and also profitable, pero wag naman sobrang laki for the traders kasi sila po naghahatid sa merkado nitong asukal na to. So it's a very complicated situation, Your Honors. But the fact of the matter is, the farmers are only selling at the highest ever being sold before the end of the milling at 46 pesos lang farm gate. Di ba po, Your Honors? 46 pesos lang. Eh kung lumalabas na 100 pesos yan na yun, hindi kasalanan ng magsasaka yan. Hindi kasalanan nila yan. So, I'd like to ask a report from the BOC. Can we give the committee a report on the amount of sugar that was already inspected? Is it still ongoing, Your Honors? Are you still locating sugar? That is your mandate and you can still do so. Are you still doing so?
Yes, Your Honor, we are still in conducting inspections, Your Honor.
And please do so. We have laws that will protect you from doing so, making these inspections. It's always best to err on the side of the law and the farmers. Yan pong utos ng ating Pangulo to make sure na walang hoarding, na walang price manipulation. Para sa ganun ay may baba talaga natin ang presyo ng asukal. And for the record, Your Honors,
Yes,
Mr.
Your
President, for the record, I really laud the efforts of Malacanang in this situation. There are sectors that are trying to portray illicit conspiracies. But the fact of the matter was, They are asking for a plan. What was given instead was a sugar order to import. The president stopped this and called it illegal. And the president wants the farmers to take advantage of his newfound mandate as the secretary para tulungan natin long term ang ating mga magsasaka. That we no longer need to import if it is possible. There are many issues. Mahabang usapin yan. Baka under the committee of Senator Villar, we can discuss how we can increase production and yield of our farmers and make it more profitable to them para hindi sila lilipat sa ibang mga produkto. Ang importante po dito, magkaisa po tayo. All farming or all sugar association federations, I'm making an appeal to them. Because right now, it's a mess kasi nag-aaway-away sila. One is calling one Pinklawan, the other is calling the other mga Marcos loyalists and all that. I think we should stop calling each other names. If you want to help the farmers and the federations, let us come up with the bottom line scenario of helping the industry. Let us help each other help the industry, other than attacking each other online in the newspapers and calling each other names. I think I'm making that appeal to all our sugar farmers and federations. And I think we can all stand on that. That tigil na muna natin yung away. Let us come up with a better system of importation, a better mechanism for the SRA to say if we really truly need to import so that the farmers will not lose their income and lose, of course, the opportunity to earn a bit of money of their farms and their products. I think that is the most important that we have to, the most important message that I would like to share with everyone in the industry today. Let us stop right now the black propaganda against one federation over another. I think tigil na natin yan. Let us come up with a solution to correct the mistakes of the past and the sugar importations that we have done, if there were any, and come up with a long-term plan to really help not only the farmers but also the millers. For example, let us help Crystal Milling come up with their own refinery instead of tolling to another refinery, or other companies in Negros that have no refineries. In Brazil and in India, all the sugar mills, almost all of them have their own refineries. Para sa ganun, yung raw sugar pwede nang ibenta as bottle-grade refined sugar. Hindi na natin kailangan mag-import. So yun lang po, Mr. Chairman, and I really appreciate the participation of all the sugar stakeholders. I believe Mr. Lobregat would like to recognize.
Lobregat,
Thank
new
you.
arrivals here, I'd like to recognize the presence of former Speaker of the House, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano.
Very good.
What would be the essence of your additional statement, Mr. Lobregat?
I would just like to agree and support our Senate President for new solutions to all our problems. I would just like to reiterate what I wanted to say in the Congress, which is the big problem that we have today is the weather. If you look at the news today, they say in Spain, they are going to produce 50% less olive oil this year. If you remember, Indonesia stopped the export of palm oil for a while because everybody, when push comes to shove, they will keep their production for themselves. And it's very important to discuss the self-sufficiency that the country must try to attain in every crop. I have some proposals that I would like to discuss with you guys in private, but that's for another day. Thank you.
We note that. Thank you, Mr. Lobregat. We recognize likewise the arrival of our minority leader, Senator Pimentel. Next to ask question would be
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
before you recognize somebody, may I be excused from the meeting? You know that Secretary Manalo is coming over this afternoon to meet the members of the Senate and hopefully ask for his help for his Commission on Appointments hearing on Wednesday. May I be excused, sir?
Yes, Your Honor, but can I also be excused in that meeting? Because I will be
Yes, Your
continuing
Honor.
with the
Mr.
other
Chairman,
meetings.
before the Senate President leaves, and I'd like to congratulate him for his privileged speech and bringing this up. Just before this, Senator Padilla brought up a very, very, very good point because SRA is a GOCC. So, ang kailangan ma-appoint dyan from a short list from the GCG. Maybe through the Senate President, we can also make a representation na hindi muna ipapadala ng GCG yung kanilang short list sa Malacanang nang hindi na co-consult yung stakeholders.
Actually, the new appointments were endorsed by several stakeholders. Not all, kasi as I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, the sugar industry is made up of many
Yes.
players, no?
But yun po, sir, ang
Opo.
point ni Senator Padilla,
Yes.
mukhang illegal yung ibang appointment sa ngayon kasi hindi pa nagsasubmit ang GCG ng shortlist. So, panay acting lang sila
Okay.
because under the GCG law. So, I'm happy that Malacanang, as a fact, consulted the stakeholders. But wala sa law ng GCG to consult these stakeholders. But baka through your leadership, that's something we can change.
But I'll promise you that each group will give up their own name. Each federation and plant association will give their own names. Kaya at the end, the president will eventually have to
Yes.
decide.
But more or less, the job naman ng GCGs, pag binigay nila yung shortlist, ipapakita lang sa association na wala silang, na walang kumbaga may veto power sila.
Oo.
Na wala doon na tulisan, to put it that
Yeah,
way. di ba?
definitely.
Oh.
I totally agree. And we've been doing that. As a matter of fact, that's why they met with the president. The different stakeholders met with the president. And Mr. Lobregat was there in the meeting in Malacanang.
I'm
to
talking in
discuss
general, Mr. Sen. Presi, kasi like, as we investigated last Congress, di ba? Ang
Yes.
PhilHealth, dumaan lahat ng GCG yan. Pero kita naman natin yung dami ng scam
Oo nga.
sa PhilHealth. Maybe because hindi rin na-consulta ang mga doctors, nurses association, mga health insurance. So I'm not talking about this administration specifically,
Yes.
but in general, it might be a good idea. So anyway, I'd like to thank Chairman
Thank you
Tolentino
for the
and the
information.
Senate President.
For the Senate President lips, can I hold him for 120 seconds, Till? Part of your privileged speech, Your Honor, has something to do with the two injunctions issued by Negros courts. That's why we have here the presence of the Office of the Solicitor, Office of the Government Corporate Counsel. And part of your speech, Your Honor, has something to do with the functions of the OGCC. Can you give us, in 2 minutes, the gist why the twin injunctions issued by the courts in Negros cannot apply nationwide? Your legal opinion there, OGCC. And your name, please.
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon po, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon, Mr. Senate President, and to the members of the committee. I am Manuel F. Santos Jr. of the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel. Yes, Your Honor, the position of the OGCC is that a preliminary injunction issued by an RTC is effective and enforceable only within the territorial boundary of the region where the RTC is located. This is actually based on Section 21 of Batas Pambansa 129 or the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended. Under said Section 9, it provides that regional trial court shall have original jurisdiction in the issuance of writs of mandamus, quo warranto, habeas corpus, and injunctions enforceable within the respective jurisdictions or within the respective regions. So that is the position of the OGCC, that since the RTC, which issued the two regional trial courts which issued the injunction orders are located in Negros Occidental, which in turn is located in Region 6, then the sugar importation activities can proceed outside of that territorial jurisdiction, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm not a legal luminary like yourself. I'm kung sa Bisaya, murag abogado ba? Parang abogado lang sa nag-aaral. But in the United States, when a lower court issues an order, it is applied throughout the United States. If there's an injunction on a particular government agency, it basically affects the whole territory. Is there a legal precedence to what you have said, Your Honors, by the Supreme Court?
The legal precedent that we found, Your Your Honor, is that there is one case involving a judge located in RTC of Marawi, wherein he was penalized by the Supreme Court for issuing a writ of preliminary injunction directing a corporation which is located here in Manila to issue a check to a certain foundation, Your Honor, to a certain organization, Your Honor. So the Supreme Court penalized the judge for issuing a writ of preliminary mandatory injunction outside of his territorial jurisdiction, Your Honor.
So this has not been questioned yet. This has not been. Has this been a case? Has there been a case brought to the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals on like a particular issue?
No, we are not aware of any case, Your Honor.
So if there's, for example, hypothetically, let's say there's a complaint against PLDT or Smart or Globe, let's say by a consumer in Negros or in Bukidnon, complaining about poor quality or signal or reneging from their commitment to interconnect so and so, and there's a TRO given by the courts in Bukidnon or in Negros or Cebu, it is not applicable throughout the whole country?
Yes, Your Honor. That is the express provision under Section 21 of BP 129, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The OGCC, please take note that perhaps there will be contrary and alternative opinions because you were the ones who were enjoined. Your office, and your office has a national jurisdiction. Your office has no limited jurisdiction in Negros. It can be argued that way. Otherwise, you'll be saying that all the regional trial courts in the Philippines should issue an injunction likewise or the Court of Appeals. But what if it is an RTC where the corporate office, headquarters of a sugar plant is located? What would be the implication? So just hold your legal perception there. Senator Pimentel, our bar top notcher, might have a different opinion. So we'll discuss that during the next meeting. I just want you to express that in the presence of the Senate President. Thank you, Mr. Senate President.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
We have here the presence likewise of, before we ask Senator De La Rosa and Senator Cayetano, we have here the presence of the PITC. Senator Villar, is Senator Villar present now virtually? Senator Villar, are you present, ma'am? The chairperson of the Senate Committee on Agriculture. If she's not around, you were required to be present today because of some concerns that some funds of the SRA were channeled to your agency. Is that correct? And that you were likewise involved in sugar importation. Just those two questions.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. Yes, there was a fund transfer of SRA in the Philippine International Trading Corporation, but that was in 2019. So I came into PITC just November of 2021. I don't have personal knowledge, but I have seen through the reports that there have been projects of SRA in PITC. But when I came in, only one was not yet paid, but it was all liquidated, dispersed and liquidated by March of 2022, Your Honors.
Can you specify the said projects? We have here the presence of the former SRA administrator.
Can I just check on my...
So there were projects completed and there are still projects pending and there are still amounts lodged in your office. Is that correct?
At this point, Your Honor, no more pending projects with SRA. All has been liquidated, sir, by March of 2022.
And the last one was?
And the last one was implemented before I came in, but I was...
Involving?
Sir, come again, sir?
Involving which project? Procurement? Importation?
Sir, it's a project po of SRA to PITC.
concerning,
harvester, sir.
so that's for the farmers under the SIDA law of 2015.
Opo, sir.
And
Yes,
the
sir.
amount involved,
The total amount involved for SRA projects with PITC is 494 million, Your Honor.
494 million. That
Yes,
was
sir.
the last one. Can you confirm and affirm that, Administrator Serapica?
Yes, Your Honor.
So everything,
Can may I intercede, Chairman? I'm online.
yes, I was speaking on your behalf because we had the lady from PITC waiting here since this morning. We recognize the virtual presence of the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Agriculture, the Honorable Cynthia Villar.
Yeah, I want to manifest that if you are going to do mechanization, you ask PhilMec to do it because that's the agency of the government in charge of mechanization. In every law that I pass, it's PhilMec which is implementing. So I'm just curious why they go to PITC. Oh, because the Department of Agriculture has a mechanization agency that is PhilMec. Oo. So why are the people always going to PITC? Even DNR, when they have a project on establishment of composting facility and plastic recycling facility, they go to PITC. And then it took them 6 years to implement. So I'm just doubting already why they go to PITC. Are there things
SRA?
that, yeah. Why don't you go to PhilMec? Because that's the
SRA?
agency of the Department of Agriculture that is in charge of mechanization.
SRA, can you answer that?
This issue on the farm machineries only happened once, Your Honor, and there was no subsequent procurement undertaking with the PITC, Your Honor.
That's
But
not the
under the
question. The
SIDA law,
question-
you're supposed, Mr. Serapica, under the SIDA law, you're supposed to implement it yearly. There is a budget for that. Under the SIDA law, you failed to implement it. The only time you implemented it is you gave it to PITC.
Any answer, Mr. Serapica? Or would your silence mean that you agree?
This procurement only happened once, Your Honor, and during that time, way back in 2018, there was a MOA that was presented to the Sugar Board for
A
approval.
while ago, you mentioned 2015. Now it's 2018.
Sorry, Your Honor.
You mentioned 2015. Now you're saying it's 2018.
2018, Your Honor, not 2015.
But there has been a budget for mechanization since the enactment of the SIDA law, and they are not implementing it. The only time they implemented it is they gave it to PITC. So that's kind of weird. Okay, thank you.
PITC, anything to add? Bakit po kayo lagi ang gusto ng mga government agency?
Sir, I cannot speak for that, sir, because I only came in 2021 November, Your Honor. So, although in our reports that I have with me here, the fund transfer of SRA to PITC was February of 2019, Your Honor.
So it's not 2018.
Na-
Previously, it was 2015,
May-
then 2018. Now it's 2019.
Sir,
Which is
maybe
which?
because there is a MOA, the MOA should come before the fund transfer. So MOA might be in 2018, but the fund transfer came in February of 2019, Your Honor.
And you assume your position 2021.
Yes, sir,
So,
November of 2021, Your
I have
Honor.
no further questions to the lady from PITC. I think Senator De La Rosa, next in line. Thereafter, Senator Pimentel. Senator De La Rosa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's just one rejoinder. Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Pablo Lobregat, sir, I've been listening intently to your exchanges between you and Senator Rizal Tiberos, and also between you and the Senate President. And you seem to wield so much authority on what you are saying. So following your narrative, sir, nasabi mo kanina that there seem to be no hoarding activities happening around because the results of the Bureau of Custom raids or inspections only shows around the 10% or 15% of the inventory of the what is supposed to be the sugar label that we have, a sugar supply label that we are supposed to have at this point in time. So, sir, tanungin ko lang diretso kung following your narratives, kung hindi lang sana naharang ng Malacanang yung sugar order number 4, hindi siguro ganito kataas ang presyo ng sugar ngayon, because if sugar number 4 was materialized and pumasok yung supply ng sugar, so obviously the price should have gone down. So kung hindi yun naharang, okay siguro ang presyo ng sugar ngayon, hindi ganito kataas. Just your opinion, sir. I just would like to ask you on that.
Mayong hapon, sir. Hindi naman sa hinarang ng SO4, no? Like I said, I mentioned that ang hinarang was SO3 first in January. Dapat pumasok yan sa Marso. Kung pumasok yan sa Marso, I think it would have calmed the perception that there was not going to be a deficit or a shortage of available refined sugar, right? What further delayed it, and this is what was in my presentation in Congress, was the elections created paralysis in many government agencies. SRA was hesitant to issue sugar order number 4 because it was sugar order number 3 was still pending at that point. They were scared that pag nag-issue ka ng sugar order number 4, you're already in contempt of court, right? Hindi pa na-resolve yung sugar order number 3, right? So there was a delay, okay? And when the go-ahead was given to come up with sugar order number 4, for me, in my opinion, it was already late. We have passed on to the Senate the same presentation that we gave in the Congress, and we showed this chart here. I don't know if the Secretariat has our position papers and all that, and they can show it. By that time, the sugar was already too high. You're going to have to dampen that price. You can't fight a big fire with a hose. You're going to need a big fire truck to douse that fire, which was the price.
Yes,
So,
sir.
But again, this is what I said. This was an inherited problem of the president. He only came in June. This was going on already, right? And so maybe, I said, I have no opinion on the validity, legal validity of whether the signatures were wrong or they did not have the authority to sign. But I reiterate that sugar order number 4 had a valid rationale, which should have been implemented even 2 months before.
Yes, sir. So, yun nga, the reason why, according to Administrator Serapica, parang lumalabas na minadali nila yung sugar order number 4 dahil nakita na nila yung looming situation na talagang nagkakaroon na shortage sa supply. Kaya minadali niya yung pag-drop at saka pagpapapirma ng sugar order number 4. So granting, ito lang, just your opinion. Kung hindi ito, halimbawa, nakita ni President Marcos, ito naman pala, inassume na lang ni Sirapika at ni Yusek Sebastian yung responsibilidad para kasi nakita nila malaking problema talaga pag yung nga, may problema na tayo sa sugar order number 3 na delayed kaya nakakaroon ng shortage. In order to remedy the situation, according to Sirapika, minadali nila itong ISO number 4. So kung nakita ni Presidente na ito very laudable itong ginawa ni Sirapika at ni Yusek Sebastian, go na ito para ma-remedy ang situation. Do you think hindi bababa ang presyo ng sugar kung halimbawa smooth sailing ang ISO number 4, hindi tayong ganito ngayon kahirap, walang coke plantation, Coca-Cola plant na mag-shutdown. Do you think mag-normalize ang situation kung nakalusot yung ISO number 4?
Number one, it would have given a different perception to market forces. It would have given, in other words, uy, may papasok na, so makakahinga, makaka-relax na. Diba? Okay lang. Diba? And then, of course, depends on how fast that sugar could have come in. At that point, probably it was still cheaper or it was still available. Because today, it's difficult to get sugar because Thailand is not milling. They will start milling in January or December, right? If you're going to have to get sugar, if you can get 150,000 tons in, you're going to have to scrape from Thailand, from Indonesia, and probably Malaysia. And if you can't get it there, then you're going to have to go all the way across the Pacific to Brazil and maybe some South American country, which is already out quota, which carries a 45% tariff instead of a 5% tariff within ASEAN. But yes, if it was signed, I think it would have calmed down the market. Okay, the guys that had sugar, if you're saying that people were holding sugar, at this point in time, if you have sugar, you're selling your sugar. This is a jackpot. These prices show that last year, the price of refined was 53. Today, we're only marking it at 95, but sometimes it's lower. All these groceries that they're saying that you can buy sugar at 70 pesos, you go to the grocery. If you buy more than 1 kilo, they'll say, no, hindi pwede. You cannot buy more than 1 kilo. Right? What does that show you? There is a shortage.
Thank you, sir. Maraming salamat for that explanation.
Daghang
Mr. Chairman.
salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Salamat.
Can we now have Senator Coco Pimentel, our mathematician?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kunin ko na rin yung balance ni Senator Bato.
We'll have,
Yes, sa'yo na yan
we'll have
lahat.
the
Sa'yo na.
balance of Senator Bato and Senator Cayetano.
Thank you. But actually, wala kasi si ES, Mr. Chairman. Marami kasi ako itatanong sana. In aid of legislation na lang din sana. Andito na ako physically present na Administrator Serafica, a former admin. Magtulungan tayo on the legislative part, no? Saka na muna yung accountability part, no? Yung composition ng SRA. Do you think do you recommend after having spent mga around 4 years ka as administrator in the, more or less?
Since 2017.
So for mga 5 years pa nga. So do you recommend that we expand the membership to represent the different stakeholders in the sugar industry?
Well, personally, Mr. Chair or Your Honors, it's, basing on EO 18, unless otherwise, there will be very extensive consultation among the stakeholders because the essence of EO 18 already represents the industry, the miller sector and the farmer sector. But if you want to expand it to the consumers and the other users, that will be studied carefully and with due consultation with the stakeholders, I suppose, Your Honors.
Sige, sir. Sige, sir. Thank you for your answer. Precisely, yung concept nyo pala talaga ng stakeholders, very, very narrow, very, very limited. I think it's time to expand the concept of stakeholders. And I would like to believe, kaya kami nag-hearing dito ngayon, is because reklamo ang consumers sa presyo nga ng sugar. So, from wala akong normal price eh. What is the normal price before the issue? Normal price, then 110 pesos per kilo. So naging at the forefront ngayon ng issue ng sugar because napakamahal. And then bumaba at 70 pesos per kilo today. Correct me if I'm wrong kung sino yung marunong kung alam yung current prices. Hindi dumating yung hindi dumating yung 300,000 metric tons ng SO4 And yet, napababa ang presyo from 110 to 70. Can somebody explain? What happened to the emergency? Na supposed to be emergency, pag sinabi emergency, kung hindi natuloy SO4, yung 110 should have even gone up, pero bumaba. So, yes, sir. Mr. Lobregat will give us the answer.
Good afternoon, Mr. Senator. I was in the Malacañang meeting when there was a voluntary offer to make available 1.5 million kilos of refined sugar by URC. I don't know if there were subsequent offers also to make additional sugar available. I think the Victoria's Milling has also made offers to bring down the retail price of refined sugar. URC does have retail outlets. They have supermarkets. I don't think Victoria's has its own supermarkets. But I told them the Philippines consumes about 180,000 tons a month. Okay. If you put in 1,500,000 kilos, that sounds like a lot. But if you convert the 180,000 tons a month, that is 180 million kilos. So you tell me if 1.5 million is going to make a dent when the requirement is 180 million kilos. I mean, I'm not belittling their donation or offer, right? But this is why I don't know how many supermarkets are selling at 70 pesos.
Correct, correct, sir. Kaya nga ganito, if you go back to the basic economics principle of supply and demand, so are you telling this committee that the 70 pesos per kilo is an artificial price?
Yes.
That's your. So somebody is absorbing a loss when it sells at 70 pesos per kilo.
Not necessarily a loss, an opportunity to make more money.
Yun, precisely, an opportunity to make more money. So at 110 pesos per kilo, who is having this opportunity to make a lot of money?
Mr. Senator, I do not want to
importer.
accuse.
Importer.
Senator Villar, would you like to interject formally?
I just want, yes. I just want to manifest that during the time of when we wrote the RTL, the price of rice rose to 60 pesos per kilo. And then we wrote the RTL, we liberalized the importation of rice. It has never risen to 60 pesos per kilo. Kasi noon, may exclusive right na mag-import ang NFA. And yung nabibigay niyang mga importer, kinokontrol ang presyo. May cartel. So nung i-liberalize, hindi na nakontrol ng NFA. Ngayon, misikailan hindi na tumaas ang presyo ng bigas more than 40 pesos per kilo. Sometimes, kahit ka magpa-import, pag nakartel yung supply, tataas ang presyo. Why will the prices go up more than 70 pesos when it's cheaper to import? And the cost of sugar in the Philippines, as they said, is something like 52 pesos. Bakit tataas ng 100? Mas mura pa yung imported na sugar. Di may nagko-control ng supply. So, yun ang problema natin. That when we allow exclusive to importers, they control the supply and they raise the price. Hindi talaga because mas mahal ang sugar, but because nako-control yung supply. That's what happened to rice. O kaya tinanggal namin yung exclusive right of NFA to allow importation. Nung tinanggal yun sa NFA, nawala na yung pagtaas ng bigas Ngayon, hanggang 40 na lang ang bigas Noon nag-60 noong 2018 kaya nag-liberalize tayo ng importation of rice.
Thank you, ma'am. So for my education, if our resource persons can comment on my question.
Mr. Senator, I just want to make a statement that the sugar industry is the most organized agricultural product in the country. We did not want these high prices, and this is why we were pushing for importation when we saw that there was a need to balance the supply and demand requirement. But there were many things that prevented this. That was explained very clearly in my congressional presentation, which I think we gave, it's on YouTube, but we also gave this to the Senate. It's a very short explanation, very simple to understand. And I called it the perfect storm. We got hit by a storm which paralyzed Negros momentarily, but it did have lingering effects on refined sugar production. Then an importation program was delayed. Sugar order number 3 was delayed by a TRO. The elections happened. There was paralysis in the government for a while. I mean, paralysis in quotation until the new administration took over. And this is why prices were alarmingly high. And we were trying to stop this by bringing an importation program. We were saying from the very beginning, there is going to be a big deficit. And if it's not corrected, then prices are just going to go up, because when there is a big demand and there's a very small supply, if I have 5 pieces of sugar to sell and one starts bidding, a buyer starts outbidding the other, what am I going to do? Right? I'll sell it to the highest bidder. Here, I have one. Who wants it?
That's correct. Okay, pero yun lang, an observation that even without SO4, we are still surviving the sugar emergency situation, and the price of sugar accessible before at 110 pesos per kilo is now accessible at 70 pesos per kilo. Medyo mapapakamo tayo ng ulo doon actually, unless you're telling me that this is a very artificial situation. But the information I get is that kahit yung nagbebenta ngayon ng 70 pesos per kilo ay hindi nag-aabono kung monti lang ang kanyang kita. So that means before, grabe pala ang pagpiga sa ating mga consumer at buyers at 110 pesos per kilo. Ngayon, sa sagot ni Senator Cynthia Villar na importers ang malaking kinikita, that's why importante siguro yung listahan unless na-submit na from the SRA on who are these privileged few who can actually import sugar because of permits and licenses issued by the SRA. Kasi kung if we look at them as a group, kunyari, ilan lang po yan, kunyari 30 or 50 sila, these are the people who have practically the monopoly of importing sugar. So may I get some, sino na ba ngayon ang new SRA administrator? Kasi tanong tayo ng tanong kay Engineer
There is a new,
Serapica.
apparently all the new appointees got infected with COVID.
Andito naman si
So,
Deputy, sir. Sige, si
They
Deputy
are
na lang.
here, but they're virtually present, except for one. So, Deputy,
Si Deputy na,
Yes,
mas matagal
yes.
na rin siya.
Yes, sir.
Attorney Tejeda. Yes, sir. Ano lang, kung paulit-ulit na itong tanong, just forgive me, pero ilan po yung ating importers?
So it would depend on the importation program. Now in SO3, I think there are 30 and 60 for butters and premium. But this representation, sir, would like to, in representation also the new members of the Sugar Board by virtue of an authority to attend this hearing, I shall furnish this committee, sir, of the list of
Okay.
importers as requested, sir.
Pero walang 100 yan, ano?
I-
On a per sugar importation plan, walang 100 yan, ano? Wala, no?
None, sir.
So it's a privileged few. And paulit-ulit ang mga pangalan yan, siguro.
We will verify, sir.
Di mo pa napansin? Ilang years ka na sa SRA?
I mean 8 years, sir, but
Oh,
the
as a 8
importation, the importation, sir, because there is a regular importation and there is what we call the regular importation for custom-bodied warehouse, sir. It's a separate program aside from the regular importation.
Ulit-ulit, there's a regular importation.
On CBW, sir, and food manufacturers.
Ilang metric tons yun? Regular.
It would depend, sir, on their allocation, but I think they're 60 to 70,000 metric tons, sir,
metric tons
in a year.
And then what is the other, how do you call the other kind of importation?
That's the importation, sir, as the board would determine the gap or the deficit in the supply.
That is in the sugar orders naman.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, pero syempre, may idea ka na yung sino yung nabigyan ng license sa regular importation at saka sa sugar order importations, common names.
Yes, sir. We shall
see.
provide, sir, this committee with the
Tama, hindi ko pa nakikita, pero alam mo, common name. Syempre, because they develop expertise dan sa negosyo. Negosyo yan eh.
Yes, sir.
So we need to know, Mr. Chairman. So I think we thank Attorney Tejeda for his commitment to submit to the committee names of the corporations, and of course, when they apply, they also revealed the individuals or the personalities behind the corporations, the human beings ba, di ba? So pakibigay na rin sa amin yung basic information, sino yung, hindi lang yung korporasyon, but sino yung people behind this.
Well, as this committee would intend, sir, the documents will be readily be made available.
Thank you very much. Kasi these are the privileged few eh. Practically, monopoly power yan sila. Mga not more than 60 lang. 60 entities lang nga eh. Yes. So, yun lang po. Nagpapanik kasi ako, Mr. Chairman, sa countdown natin. So, yung in aid of legislation sana, ayusin natin itong SRA kasi it's worth saving. At saka yung expertise na na-develop na ito eh. At saka the regulation, I think the commodity, the trading in sugar still needs to be regulated or highly regulated unless there is a contrary opinion from our resource persons. Is there any from our resource persons that we need to release sugar from this regulation? Wala. But Attorney Santos, why you were raising your hand pala? A different topic? Yes, sir.
Regarding the Senate Minority Leader's observation earlier regarding the need to examine the sugar board, the composition of the sugar board, I'd just like to make the observation that I think that SRA is unique in the sense that first, the number of members of the sugar board is even number. There are 4. Usually it's odd number. 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. And secondly, even in private sector, in ordinary corporations, the minimum number of board of directors is 5 and the maximum is 15. Unlike in the sugar board, they only have 4. So that is for the consideration of the...
Thank you, sir. Actually, yung aming pinag-iisipan ng amendment is we will enlarge the representation in the board and make it an odd number. Thank you for that. Marami pa sana tayong tanong pero kay ES tsaka, well, anyway, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I have some quick administrative matters with the permission. One, we have here in our midst a certain John Paul Antes. 2 days to may hearings na siya dito. Can you be here so that we can expedite this? You have taken your oath. Can you be seated? Less than 2 minutes lang to. Mr. John Paul Antes, you have executed a sworn statement before. Can that be flashed on the screen? You are Mr. John Paul Antes. You are a senior sugar production and regulation officer. Yes, nag-oath ka na? Not yet?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Oh, administer the oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
So there is flashed on the screen a document entitled Sworn Statement. Do you recognize this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sa'yo ba yan?
Yes, my sworn statement.
Ikaw ang gumawa niyan?
Yes, sir. Ako, sir, ang personally gumawa.
Freely, voluntarily?
Freely and voluntarily, Your Honor.
So what about the contents? Tungkol saan ba yan? Ano natatandaan mo dyan sa ginawa mong sworn statement na yan? Dated August ano ba to? August 10 o August 19, 2022?
It's about, sir, na I'm assigned or I have additional assignment to the Office of the Sugar Board Secretary, aside from being the Senior Sugar Production and Regulation Officer.
So the sworn statement is about your functions. Medyo maliit dito kaya hindi nababasa ng iba. Gusto ko na lang tapusin ito para tapos na rin yung presence mo kasi ilang araw ka na nandito. So nakalagay dito yung mga functions mo, additional assignments by virtue of Special Order number 38. And apparently, ikaw ang tiga-ikot ng mga pipirmahan, including SO4. Ikaw yung tiga-referendum, ibig ko sabihin. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Sa nakita mo dito, itong affidavit mo, sworn statement, it has not been changed or modified at all. That's the same, right?
Yes, sir.
As you executed it. So, dito sa trabaho mo, you were the one who routed the draft SO number 4. Sa SO number 3, ikaw din ba yun? Ikaw tiga-ikot talaga ng ganito?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
About regarding the mga board resolutions.
So ikaw ang pinagkakatiwalaan. Part of your sworn statement would indicate that upon receipt, and I quote, upon receipt of the proposed agenda item, I was instructed by then SRA administrator. Sino yon? Who is that SRA administrator?
Your Honor, the former administrator.
Serafika, who is here present, to facilitate within the day the referendum on the loan agenda. So there is an urgency here within the day, quote unquote. So minadali ka, sinabihan ka ba, tapusin mo na to bata para mamayang hapon pirmado na to. When was this? August 8 or August 9?
August 8, sir.
August 8. So bago-bago lang, ilang araw pa lang nakakalipas. So ginawa mo to within the day.
That's correct, Your Honor.
So yung narinig mo yung mga tanong ko kay Attorney Beltran, yung mga tanong ko dun sa iba na ikaw pala yung tiga route nito, are you authorized to affix electronic signatures?
Your Honor, hindi po ako yung nag-affix ng signature po nila. I emailed them informing, requesting for their e-signature. May sarili po sila mga board staff, Your Honor.
And then if you get the concurrence, you affix the e-signature in coordination with the staff.
Sir, wala po, sir. For the record, sir, wala po akong ina-affix na e-signature. I'm not authorized. I'm just email them the draft board resolutions, and upon their approval, their board staff will be the one who are going to affix their e-signatures.
Again, you were the one pivotal, vital in securing all the signatures through the urging of then Administrator Serafika. That's my last question. Tama ba yan?
Yes, sir, because I'm the one who emailed the
Yeah,
former board
so
members.
you affirm the contents again of the sworn statement.
Yes, sir, I'm affirming my sworn
So,
statement.
Mr. Secretary, can you make this part of the exhibits coming from the SRA? And for administrative purposes, let's do it this way. For all the exhibits coming from SRA, we mark it A-1 consecutively. For all exhibits emanating from other government offices, including the Office of the Executive Secretary, the PITC, etc., we mark it B-1 consecutively. For all exhibits coming from the private sector, including the Philippine Sugar Millers, other associations, etc., we mark it C-1 consecutively. Comsec, can you do that?
Yes, Your Honor, we will do that.
I think, Mr. Antes, I'm done with you unless my colleague, the Honorable Minority Leader, has some other questions concerning your sworn statement. So, Senator Pimentel, no questions for this witness. You are excused. Thank you, Mr. Antes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I think I will now go, with the permission of the Honorable Minority Leader, I will go to two sugar importers. San Fernando Eric Commercial Inc. is the representative here. San Fernando Commercial Inc. Kanina nag-present yan, Comsec. Is San Fernando Commercial Inc. present? Ito yung Commissioner, Commissioner of Customs. Isa to sa mga binisita nyo, San Fernando Commercial Inc. San Fernando Eric Commercial Inc. Saan to located?
Your Honor, let me check my notes, Your Honor.
Before you answer, is Delmax Corporation likewise present in this room? Can they be invited next hearing? Commissioner, are you familiar with Delmax Corporation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Kailan nyo po ito binisita?
Let me check my records, Your Honor. I do not have the.
So the reason why I am asking this, for the record, and I asked this 2 hours ago, Mr. Commissioner. Ang tanong ko sa iyo kanina, pag nag-import ba, at alam niyo yung mga papeles nito, dadaan lahat sa inyo to, pag halimbawa po ba ang in-import, ang allowable importation quota is 5,000, tapos yung in-import ay 7,000, how do you treat the excess importation of 2,000? If that's in metric tons, if that's in sugar or whatever item, if it's no longer allowed? Is that smuggled? Is that confiscatable? Is that subject to seizure?
Yes.
Or what? Anong tawag po doon?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you educate
excess,
this committee? Can you edify us?
the excess of the MAB, Your Honor, is already unauthorized, Your Honor.
Refer to maximum allowable.
The minimum access volume, Your Honor.
Can you proceed before I interrupt?
Anything in excess of the MAB, Your Honor, is already unauthorized, Your Honor.
What will happen to the excess of the unauthorized?
It will be confiscated, Your Honor.
And how is it treated? Is it transferred to a separate bonded warehouse? Is it sold through public auction? Is it since this is, if it involves a perishable item, is it subject to sale or what happens?
It is subject to auction, Your Honor.
So the reason why I stated that is based on our records. Can you flash that on the screen? The released items coming from SRA. Pasensya ka na, Commissioner, wala yung mga ibang colleagues ko rito nag meeting sa DFA. So I have to take the cudgels for all of them, except for the minority leader. So you look at this. San Fernando Area Commercial, Inc., which we will be inviting next hearing, was able to import 19,277,000 blah plus. The same is true with Delmax Corporation, and we're referring to sugar, 16,399,600, when the maximum allowable importation for an industrial sugar trader should just be 15,000 metric tons. So meron tayo kagad excess na 14,000. My mathematics colleague is here. Sobra kahit sa Delmax, sobra ng 1,600. What happened to this? You have the dates, you have the numbers, may dates yan, and you have the figures. Saan napunta yung excess nitong asukal na ito? Ito ba ay binenta? Ito ba ay sinira? Ito ba ay pinakain sa langgam? Saan ito napunta?
Sir, we have to check their MAV based on our data on hand, sir. If they have already reached their allocated for their allocation, sir.
Yours came from the SRA. So I can also ask Administrator Serafica, this happened during your term. Ano po ang, ayan po yung mga importer. Ayan din yung mga sugar type. Administrator Serafica, ano po ang, bakit ito sobra? Di ba ang kanilang pwede lang i-import ay 15,000 metric tons? Bakit si Delmax ay 16,000 na plus si San Fernando ay 19? At ito pong dalawang ito, Commissioner, going back to you, ay kasama doon sa mga nabisita nyo. Kamakailan lang. Kanina pasensya na, kanina ka pa tumitingin sa records nyo. Siguro, pinakamatagal niya 2 weeks ago. So, tanongin ko si Administrator si Rafica, bakit po lumampas ito? Sa halip na 15,000 ay 19,000 na. Ano pong dahilan yan?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I think I leave it to the Deputy Administrator for the latest figures.
Deputy Administrator, bakit po sumobra? Kasi alam naman natin na may cap. Merong hanggang doon lang. Tapos sumobra siya.
Yes, Your Honor. We may inquire, Your Honor, if this is 19,000 metric tons. 19,000 metric tons.
19,000 metric tons.
In total, okay. Your Honor,
Yes, but the limit, the maximum is just 15,000 metric tons.
Yeah, it could happen, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, that these importers would import for itself or for another industrial, if that is the case. Because upon checking with our licensing and monitoring division, Your Honor, there is no excess of the allocated volume for these individual importers. So it could be that one of these two importers have their own, or the two have their own allocation for themselves, then they also imported in the name of the industrial, which was allowed under Sugar Order Number 3.
So how will Bureau of Customs determine which is which if it is contained in just one bill of lading, if it is contained in one importation document? Paano makikita ni Bureau of Customs? Kasi sabi niya kanina, nakarating na kami sa auction, nakarating na kami sa confiscation, seizure. Paano niya madidetermine yung these are all the same? Sugar ito, hindi naman to gaya ng other materials na sapatos, o iba yung sapatos, iba yung damit. They all they can be commingled, they are perishable. So how will Bureau of Customs, except for a shipping document which probably might contain the entire this is one shipping transaction, 19,277. Hindi ito separate na 15,000 yung isa, ganon. So, for administrative efficiency, how will the Bureau of Customs determine that? How will the Bureau of Customs likewise pursue that in terms of the appropriate fees, charges, wharfage fees, venue, taxes, etc., etc.? Di ba magulo?
Yes, Your Honor. The process will be served that when these sugar are set to arrive these are being cleared by the Sugar Regulatory Administration, and we furnish the Bureau of Customs a copy of that clearance for release of imported goods.
That is related to the question previously of my, I forgot the name, either Senator Tulfo or Senator JB and Senator Pimentel, that you should furnish this committee with a list, 60 ang sinabi ni Senator Pimentel, of all duly registered sugar traders. So malalaman natin yun eh, ilan yung na-import na nila. Baka sumobra na. You're just saying from your recollection, but we're looking at what is provided for the MAB. We're looking at the records coming from your office. Ay mukhang sobra. Pag tiningnan pa natin yung iba, baka meron ding sumobra. Kaya hindi kaya pwedeng lumabas na sa dinami-dami ng na-import. Bakit nagtatanong yung iba nating mga consumer, meron pa rin tayong shortage. Ito na nga, sobra na nga ito. Ba't nagkulang pa? Diba? Tingnan mo, 15,000, naging 19,000 siya. Sobra na yung inangkat niya, and yet, we feel the pinch, quote-unquote, of a shortage. Kaya balik ulit dun sa shortage. Is there a shortage? Pero ito, sobra, oh. Sobra yung, sa inyo galing yan eh, hindi sa amin yan eh. Sumobra yung na-import, ganon din siguro yung nangyari sa Subic, na hindi pa na ibababa sa commissioner, hindi pa na ibababa sa barko?
Not
Hindi pa.
yet, Your Honor.
Hindi pa na ilalagay sa warehouse yun.
Not yet, Your Honor.
Tatama na naman ng bagyo, baka maapektuhan pa yun. So, how do we reconcile all of these figures na in excess? Sabi niyo, baka meron pang... Can you provide this committee during the next hearing the latest and most accurate figure so that we can all reconcile all of this? Baka, halimbawa, baka yung how much sugar order 3? 200,000?
200,000 metric tons refined sugar, Your Honor.
Ilan na?
200,000 refined
Baka
sugar.
Pag in-add natin, baka naging 250 na yon, di ba? Baka sumobra na. And yet, merong kulang. Mr. Senator Pimentel, I am really at a loss. You are more proficient in mathematics, but my little experience with algebra would let me wander in uncharted space. So, salamat, Mr. Deputy Administrator. But for the next hearing, provide us with more accurate figures as well as the list of all duly registered industrial sugar traders. We expect that from you. And then the same is true with the good commissioner. Ilan na yung na-zist, ilan na yung na-auction, ilan na yung na-confiscate, ilan na yung na-meted out ng fine. Senator Pimentel, you have something
Yes,
to
Your
say?
Honor.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Siguro dadaanan lang namin ng staff ko to kasi we have to get the domestic production of sugar. Then we call that raw sugar, di ba? Tama ba yun? Correct my terms, ha? Please, nodding na lang, through nodding. I'm just looking at Engineer Serapica kasi he's considered expert na yan. And from the domestic production would come our domestic production of refined sugar. Di ba? Yun. Domestic. Doon siya magagaling. Correct or not correct? Mr. Serapica?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Correct, di ba? Okay, so, and then, so yun yung ating total Philippine domestic production na. Yun. Hindi lalampas si production of refined sugar sa production of raw sugar. Tama? Logical? Okay, so, okay, tapos you have this 175,000 metric tons monthly demand for raw. Is that raw? Raw. And then 85,000 metric tons for monthly for refined is the demand. Yan. Okay. So, babanggain lang natin yan. That would now be our need to import. Dalawang categories pa rin. Pwede pa, tama, our importation is dalawang categories pa rin, of raw and also of refined. Is that correct, Engineer Serapica?
Yes po.
Sige.
Yes, Your Honor.
So yon. And then, as I understand it, you put an allowance? So it's not purely ima-minus lang, right? Domestic demand, annual, i-annualize ko lang annualized domestic demand for the two categories minus annualized domestic production would be our importation plan. But do you add something there as parang buffer stock?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's the formula for that buffer stock?
It boils down to the carryover of the preceding crop year. In this case, the carryover, meaning the ending balance of the last crop year, will be carried over to the new season. So if we take a look on the first 3 months, usually we do not get enough raw production because the mills are just starting to build up the raws. So it's critical in this case of putting a buffer stock. The comfortable buffer stock is between 200 to 250,000 metric tons.
Oo nga. So yun na nga. So you have a theoretically, yan yung nasa mind ninyo. And then you look at the carryover, kunyari, lagyan natin sa 100 lang yung carryover. So yung balance 250,000 metric tons minus 100,000 metric tons sa carryover, that's 150,000 metric tons. You add that to the importation plan. That
Yes.
would now be the annualized importation plan for the next crop year. Tama? As
Yes
I
po.
understand it.
Yes.
Okay. Ito lang yung concern ko eh. Yung carryover natin, every crop year is a combination of domestic production and imported sugar. Is that correct, Mr. Ravaka?
Yes, although it is segregated, what is
Correct.
domestically produced and the importation, but still, at the end of the day, that will be part of the inventory for the entire, let's say, refined sugar in this case.
Hindi, ang aking kasing concern nga, ang ating point is, kulang na nga si domestic production sa domestic demand. Kulang na yun, di ba? Bakit hindi na, yun lang concern, bakit hindi na natin inuubos? Dapat ubusin si domestic production of both raw and refined. Dapat zero nga carry over dun eh. Sa column na yun on domestic, zero yun. Because that's the only reason you're importing kasi ubus si domestic eh. You need the help of foreign countries to satisfy the demand because domestic cannot satisfy domestic demand. Domestic production cannot satisfy domestic demand. So sana ganon, na inuubos muna natin ang domestic supply. Dapat benta lahat yan. I mean, is there something wrong with that kind of theory or theoretical approach?
Your Honor, it needs planning and anticipation because it's not that easy or quick to bring in imported sugar. Minimum is 3 weeks to 4 weeks to bring in imported sugar, considering all the logistical and the challenges within the Asian sugar-producing countries, Your Honor.
Kaya nga, all the more, dapat ubos si domestic supply. Doon lang ako nagtataka eh. I saw your mga crop year reports, meron kayong carry over na domestic supply. I mean, I find it illogical that there is we say from the very start, our assumption is domestic demand far exceeds domestic production or domestic supply. And yet, at the end of a crop year, we have a carryover report coming from domestic supply. What is the explanation there? Bakit hindi ubos? Bakit hindi naubos si domestic supply? Engineer Serapika, Attorney Tejida, yung mga 5 years and above na sa SRA, help me understand. Obrigado. Sige.
Recognize, Mr. Lobregat.
Yes,
You
the
will
private sector.
answer on behalf of the private sector.
Private sector, yes.
Not on behalf of the SRA.
Not in the SRA. I answer on behalf of my personal knowledge. In the months of September, October, November, this is only when the milling season starts, right? The production, for example, and this year they started in August, 1 month earlier, which is not ideal.
Sir Lobregat, before you proceed,
Yes.
the indulgence of Senator Pimentel, I'd like to excuse the lady from PITC. I think you have a meeting. The committee excuses you right now.
Sure, thank you. Like I said, in the beginning of the year, we need that buffer stock to carry us over into September, October, November, because the production is very low. They started this year, August. For the first 3 weeks of August, the production has only been 10,000 tons, right? If let's assume that the average requirement is about 170, 180, you can see how big a deficit that is. In September, it goes up. We don't know, depending on the weather, but it's usually still rainy. And October and November, more or less, it's about even, but that's why it's important to have a carryover. And this was foreseen. That is why the necessity of an importation to make sure that there was a buffer stock. This is different from the pipeline. The buffer stock, of course, is what usually comes from mills and refineries, what they still have for sale, right? But that is why it is necessary to maintain that buffer stock, because in the first few months of the new crop, the production is not as high as in later months when you have the peak of production, because later during the peak you can hit 400,000 tons in 1 month. So I hope that explains why it's important to have a buffer stock. It's like if you had a car, you're not going to make it run out of gas and then walk to the gas station. I suppose
Yes, sir.
it's about
Ito lang, hindi natin pinag-usapan yung buffer stock. Actually, meron talagang buffer stock. But the buffer stock should be composed of already imported sugar. Kasi kung domestic, yun, ubos dapat yun eh. Yun na yung tanong ko eh. Nakasegregate kasi. Am I right, Engineer Serafica, sa data ninyo, nakasegregate yung carryover eh. Domestic and then imported. Ang question ko, how come sa carryover and the may laman si domestic? So, sa crop year, hindi na ubos si domestic. When it's supposed to be, ubos siya dahil domestic production cannot satisfy domestic demand. Can I get the SRAs, yung mga more than 5 years na si SRA? Kasi you prepare the reports eh. Unless you've not seen the table that we have examined, which came from the SRA presentation.
In this case, the actual production is very much dependent, as explained earlier by Mr. Lubrigat. We are weather dependent. Like, for example, he mentioned that there are some mills who started, instead of starting September, they opted to start August, hoping that there will be more sugar. But apparently, when you start as early than usual, it's either you have leftover canes, large canes, or young canes. So definitely the recovery is not that high. So if we say that milling has started, but the recovery rate is not there yet, what is standard in a bags per ton cane of sugar. Now, as we progress in our milling season, the recovery rate will improve, as the farmers will be milling matured canes and better quality canes. So hence, the production level is still very critical in the first 3 months of the start of the crop year.
Sige, sir. Sige, sir. At any rate, we will just go over the papers. Parang hindi tayo nagkakaintindihan eh. Pero anyway, I was handed a documents of a case number MPDC 2022-0001. So nakasuhan pa pala kayo, Yusek Sebastian, Admin Serafica, Attorney Beltran, and Mr. Valderrama. Kinasuhan pa pala kayo because of SO4. So balik nga ako sa point ko kanina. Ang laki ng implication eh. How come hindi kayo nagtiyaga to get the official reaction or position of the President himself as Acting Secretary of Agriculture and Chairman of the Board of SRA? You can, sabi nyo, you send text messages. How about a personal visit to DES every day if it is that important? Ang laki ng implications, sir. Ako nung binabasa ko yung basic facts eh. Nung you took the risk na ma-reverse kayo. Nung re-reverse kayo, disapproved, tawag-tawag, do not take it down sa website, call UP Law Center, do not publish, and then you face a case. So the consequences are too grave for you not to have, gotten the prior approval and consent of your chairman. So balik ako sa question ko, why did you do it? Yes, Yusek Sebastian, you're still undersecretary ngayon, di ba? Because your resignation has not been accepted?
That's my understanding now,
Correct. Okay.
Your Honor. But when Secretary Trixie announced that I've resigned, I thought it was already accepted at that time, Your Honor.
Sige. Okay, anyway, hindi ka pa rin sure. Kasi sir, ganito Tingnan mo, sir, bago kayo sumagot all for you, four of you. Ang bigat nung ang bigat kasi ng implication eh, ang cost sa inyo, ang bigat eh. I mean, tignan mo to sir, from the Executive Secretary, part of his testimony before this committee. I confront, on August 23, 2022, I confronted Yusek Leo Sebastian and asked him why he did such a thing behind the President's back without the President's knowledge, and in an unfair and dishonorable way. Grabe po ang pag-disown actually sa SO4. So, I mean, did you not even entertain this scenario na ganyan kagrabe ang pag-disown sa SO4? Yes, Yusek Sebastian.
Yes, Your Honor. You must remember that I was issued a memorandum July 15, 2022, Your Honor. So that gave me the authority to sit in the SRA board as ex officio. And at the same time, I was also authorized to sign various documents, Your Honor. And even in that memo, there is a provision there that all our actions are considered regular unless reprobated or disapproved by the President, Your Honor. And then with the situation that's as also explained by Mr. Lobregat here on the sugar supply situation during that time, Your Honor, you can just imagine if you are sitting in the Department of Agriculture and the pressure is there for you to act. And in our discussion with the President, he also recognized that there's a need to take fast actions. We need to act fast. That was from the President, Your Honor, that to find some solution to this sugar supply problem. So, for example, Your Honor, the reclassification was prioritized, but the reclassification is just from reserve to domestic use. Then after that, he also asked Administrator Serapica to start preparing the sugar importation plan or program, Your Honor. So there are events. The consultation was also in the process during that time, much delayed as what Mr. Lobregat has been saying here. It was supposed to be even after the election, but it was already delayed. So all these things are pressuring. The consultation was going on. Then the consultation result came up. And this was discussed, Your Honor, by Administrator Serapica during their meeting with Board Member Balderrama and the President and ES. And as also mentioned by Board Member Beltran, he was not able to join, but he also
Sir.
had some of those discussions.
The-
So all these compounding circumstances, Your Honor, are I'm also considering that, Your Honor, when all these things came finally, that we need to act and probably do and did the referendum, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Okay yun. Okay lang yun kasi act fast. So you had a plan and then you had a draft SO. You signed the draft SO. Pwede nyo hold in abeyance yun eh. Pagka binigyan na kayo sana ng clearance. Ako nalulungkot lang po ako sa developments for you, no? Sa inyong apat, actually, na kinasuhan pa kayo. Imagine mo yun. I mean, the sugar order number 4 could be signed and ready to be released upon approval of the President. You sought the approval of the President. Hindi mo lang pinurso eh. Hindi mo lang pinurso text, and then hindi sinagot yung text. Tatanong natin kay ES yun, bakit hindi niya sinagot yung text? Hindi nyo lang po talaga pinurso and then ginawa nyo ng official yung SO4 by making it, publicizing it. Releasing it to the public. Doon lang po ako talaga nagtataka kasi ang balik sa inyo napakabigat eh. I mean, if you heard the speech of the Senate President, meron pang allegation eh nang hindi ka nais-nais eh. Kaya nga sabi ko nga you should welcome actually this hearing for a chance, because this will give you the chance to clear your names. Yan po ang nangyari. Ang bigat, hindi ko talaga maintindihan, sir eh. But alam nyo, Yusek Sebastian, na mabigat ang implication ng SO4. Because you sought nga the end of the President, but you did not follow through.
Yes, Sir Rodor. That's why when I reported the result of the referendum to him and he disapproved it, I also immediately informed Administrator Serapica to recall.
Pero official na po eh.
Yes, sir.
Ano lang po yun, you were just remedying the situation, but you officially released it now as your decision, as your resolution. Kasi pagbasa ko, nasa UP Law Center na nga for publication as an administrative ruling yun or administrative issuance eh.
It was recalled, Your Honor.
Yes, I know, but ando na. From your point of view, yun na, go na. So that is the unfortunate incident, and that's why we are here, and you're facing cases, and the denunciation of your acts is so painful, so hurtful, yung mga words na ginagamit. So please, this is your chance. I don't know how many hearings pa po tayo. All the four of you, we'd like to hear from you yung decision-making process. Ano ba yung signals? That's the word now used by the Yusek Sebastian. Ano ba yung signals na binigay sa inyo? Yung mga ganon. Kasi actually ako ano ko sa inyo, naawa ko sa inyo dahil, well, I don't know if this is we can charge this to birth pains ng new administration na konting hindi maganda ang inyong coordination. Pero nangyari na po ito, no? And this is now going to be a blot on your service to the government. Just defend yourself and take the opportunity while hearing pa po itong committee ito before we make the committee report. Give us your version and defend yourselves from these grave allegations. Well, sana kung dito si ES, tatanungin ko nga yung July 15 memorandum, ano ba kasi, that was specifically addressed to you, Yusek Sebastian, that's only for you. So, interpret natin yung document na yon when they were drafting it, si ES, ano ba yung nasa mind din niya, ano nasa isip niya. Pero offhand, ako kasi, I mean, if I were given that July 15 memorandum, but the subject matter is as grave as this SO number 4, I think I would really have gotten the prior express approval of the president. You may have signed some internal memo, some reorganization of the DA without getting the express approval of the president. Iba po yun. That's on a different level than compared to SO number 4. Any reaction from you, Sec. Sebastian?
Your Honor, I was just, as I said a while ago, I was operating on that, based on that memo on July 15, 2022, Your Honor. And with good intent, I executed, I signed that SO, Your Honor. But only after also, remember, Your Honor, it's a board resolution. It's not my own decision. There were already 3 board members who voted. And to make that resolution effective, it has to be a majority of the members of the board, not just one person, Your Honor. So I could not have approved it myself alone. So beyond the process going through several steps before we went to the board, it is also a board majority that was already presented, Your Honor.
Oo nga, pero you could not argue that way sa principal mo. Di ba? You answer for your own signature. Ano, so sa principal mo, sir, nasway ako nung 3 eh. Ano, so, hindi dapat gano'n.
No, I was also convinced, Your Honor, by the data that was presented, as I mentioned.
Kaya
There's
I
the
know.
data.
You convinced ka nga, pumirma ka nga eh.
Yes, Your Honor.
You could have gotten the consent before signing. You could have gotten the consent after signing if you had made the signed SO number 4 as ano muna, as unofficial muna. Ganun sana. You could have gotten it. But at any rate, ito lang din isa ko na yung observation, Mr. Chairman, yung mga sagot nila, marami akong narinig na sagot na akala namin inapprove na ni President Marcos, kaya pirma na rin kami. Meron din tayong matinanong sa online. Ang information sa amin kasi, approved na yung 300,000 metric tons, kaya nag-submit din kami ng favorable recommendation. Tapos nung nalaman, ano ibig sabihin, nung nalaman na hindi approve, biglang bago ihip ng hangin. Sana yung SRA or lahat ng mga collegial bodies na binubuo ng gobyerno, precisely forum yan eh. Forum or a venue where you can express a contrary point of view or other points of view or other opinions. Diba? Then welcome po ang ano dyan. Welcome po dyan ang dissenting opinion. Welcome po dyan ang I disagree, I dissent. Welcome po dyan. Hindi dapat yung attitude natin na I approve. Paano pala kung the figures lead you to conclude lead you to a different conclusion? Diba? Express your different conclusion, your different position. Yun po sana, narinig ko lang sa first hearing natin na ganun yung mga reasoning nila. Medyo nasisira ang collegiate nature of the body, nasisira ang purpose ng consultation of the stakeholders. Sira kasi sasabihin ng stakeholders, ang pagkasabi sa amin, gusto na ng presidente, kaya pabor na rin kami. So, sayang. I mean, what is the purpose of consulting stakeholders? Precisely, para makapagsabi nga sila ng what is the true situation. Oh. So, okay, so let us, lesson na lang ito for everybody. Ulitin ko, I'm sad for the 4 of you. You can defend yourselves in the other fora, but take advantage while we have this hearing to also defend yourselves and let your decision-making process be known to the members of this committee so that we can really understand your point of view. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Minority Leader. I think we have to attend to Senate plenary, and we're now nearing the end, perhaps reaching the light at the end of the tunnel. We'll still have a hearing. The committee secretary is directed to invite those who fail to attend today, principally those coming from the private sector and some the new members of the board and the other resource persons mentioned hours before. So without objection on the part of my colleagues, this Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing is hereby suspended. Thank you to all the resource persons.
The top stories tonight in Y News. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board conceded it's time to raise the fare for jeepneys following yet another oil price hike happening tomorrow. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. led the nation in celebrating National Heroes Day and disclosed plans by his government to put up hospital for veterans in the Visayas and Mindanao. NASA's new moon rocket remained on track to blast off despite a series of lightning strikes at the launch pad on Saturday. And Wish 1075 celebrates its 8th year anniversary with the unveiling of the Wish Rider. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, the 29th of August, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. First in the news, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, says public utility jeepney fares are due for increase. The board is scheduled to release their decision for petitions for PUJ fare hike in September. Asher Kadapan Jr. explains why.
Fuel price is one of the significant factors in identifying the fare rate of public utility jeepneys. While the impact in the economy, particularly inflation and purchasing power of consumers, are also being considered. But as oil price persistently increase, especially this year, transport groups appeal for fare hike. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, however, recognizes the situation of the PUJ drivers and operators.
Yes, they're due naman talaga na. For increase kasi the last time we had this fare rate increase was ang level pa lang ng diesel noon was I think 44 pesos per liter. Okay. So magkano na siya ngayon, more than half na. At least more than half na ulit siya by tomorrow.
The LTFRB has consulted the fare hike petitions for jeepneys with different stakeholders. But the board finally needs a memorandum from the transport groups who filed the petitions to state their position why an increase is still necessary. The LTFRB is set to decide after receiving the said memorandum from the petitioners.
At least we're waiting for their memorandum on September 3, and then we will act accordingly. So we can expect siguro ang rate hike petition na resolution nila will happen siguro at the latest will be at the earliest